All right, welcome in everyone. Ready to do another deep dive.
Always ready.
Okay, good. Because today we're digging into the work of Robert Greene.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the guy who writes all those books about power and strategy
Yeah.
and human nature.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He's fascinating.
Yeah, and his books are like everywhere. Everyone from Jay-Z to Drake's been quoting him.
Mm-hmm.
So we know there's got to be some serious insights in there.
Yeah.
But what we're really going to focus on today
Okay.
is a recent interview where Greene gets like surprisingly personal about power, seduction, and mastery.
Oh, interesting combination.
Again, what those ideas actually mean, like in everyday life.
I love that, bringing these big concepts down to earth.
Right.
Yeah, like making them applicable.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that really struck me
Okay.
was how Greene defines power. He's not talking about like, ruling the world or anything like that. He's
Right.
talking about this inner feeling
Okay.
of self-control and influence.
That's interesting. So more like personal power.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how much control do you have over yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And then he brings up this killer quote from Malcolm X. Absolute power corrupts, but absolute powerlessness corrupts even more.
Whoa.
And he basically argues that, when we feel powerless,
Yeah.
it can actually push us into some pretty dark behaviors.
It makes you think, about times you may have felt powerless.
Oh, totally.
How you acted, right? Like if that led to any negative coping mechanism.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely been there.
And it makes you wonder, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does that relate to seduction? It's kind of a loaded word, right?
Yeah.
People use it in like manipulative ways.
Totally.
But Greene seems to see it as something totally different.
He does, yeah. He talks about seduction almost like an art form. This way to influence people, but by like creating pleasure and lowering their resistance. So they want to follow your lead.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So less about tricks and more about like genuine connection. Yeah. And he makes a distinction between what he calls cold seduction
Okay.
and warm seduction.
Okay, so cold versus warm, what's the difference?
So cold seduction is like straight up manipulation.
Okay.
Using people to just get what you want, and he's not about that. But warm seduction, it's all about genuine connection.
Okay.
It's playful, it's reciprocal,
Yeah.
and it's about drawing people in through like vulnerability and real interest.
It's funny because he actually says that seduction is a whole language,
No, right.
but it's not about the words you say, it's about gestures.
Oh, yeah, that's so true.
I've totally felt that. Like when someone's vulnerability just like instantly draws you in.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side, I've definitely been put off by people who are just like too rigid or preachy.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying too hard and it totally backfires.
That's a perfect example. And, speaking of backfiring, Greene has this other law that really made me think.
Okay.
He says, never trust friends too much. Learn how to use enemies.
Whoa, hold on a sec. Enemies? What's he talking about?
Okay, before you freak out.
Okay.
He's specifically talking about work and strategy here, not personal relationships.
Okay, good clarification. So how does this using your enemies thing work in practice?
So he actually tells this story
Okay.
about hiring someone he considered like a professional enemy. But the crazy thing is, like, by bringing this person onto his team,
Yeah.
it created this huge shift. They were able to move past their differences and actually build a really successful working relationship.
That's interesting. Makes you think, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you always play it safe, reveal all your cards in business, or are there times to, strategically hold some information back?
Totally. And you know what?
Right.
I think that goes hand in hand with his whole idea that we all play power games.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Whether we admit it or not. He even says figures like Gandhi and MLK, they weren't exempt from this.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so he's not saying they were like ruthless power mongers.
Yeah.
Right.
No. His point is they understood human nature,
Mm-hmm.
and they were just like incredibly strategic about how they use that understanding to achieve their goals.
Right.
And he's not afraid to apply this to himself either.
Oh, yeah.
He straight up says, damn it, Robert, you have a dark side. You're a narcissist.
Whoa. Okay, that's pretty intense. I mean, how many people would actually admit that?
Right.
Especially someone as successful as Robert Greene.
Yeah, it takes some serious self-awareness.
So what's his take on narcissism then? Is it all bad?
He doesn't see it as like inherently good or bad, actually. He argues that it often comes from needing to like build up self-love early in life, which, isn't necessarily a negative thing.
Right.
The problem is when that self-love turns inward instead of outward into empathy for others.
Okay.
That's when it becomes like toxic narcissism.
I see, yeah.
But he uses this really interesting phrase,
Okay.
healthy narcissist, implying that we can like channel our darker impulses into like positive and productive actions.
So it's not about denying our dark side.
Yeah.
But understanding it and then maybe like using it wisely.
Exactly. Like keeping your friends close and your enemies closer, but like with the different parts of ourselves.
Yeah. I like that.
Right.
Okay, now I want to kind of shift gears a bit here.
Okay.
And talk about confidence.
All right.
Because Greene seems to have a very specific take on that too.
Yeah, he believes like true confidence, it can't be faked.
Okay.
It has to come from like real skills and accomplishments.
I can see that, yeah.
And he tells this really relatable story about feeling like a failure with women until he achieved a certain level of success, which gave him that genuine self-assurance.
Yeah, I get that feeling of needing to like prove yourself before you can really feel confident.
Totally. And he ties that directly to body language.
Oh, interesting.
Saying that, when you're not internally battling insecurities, confidence just radiates naturally.
I see. So it's like when you're not focused on your own insecurities,
exactly,
you just project this sense of confidence.
Yeah. And he even has this theory that, like, people who are uncomfortable around children might be hiding something because kids are, like, masters at reading genuine body language.
Wow, that's really interesting. I've never thought about it that way before.
It's true. Think about it. Like, how do you feel when you're around someone who's, like, truly relaxed and confident?
Yeah, it's like their confidence just, like, puts you at ease.
Right.
Yeah, it does. So what are those, like, subtle cues?
Exactly.
How does that change the dynamic?
It's fascinating. Right.
Yeah. All right, well, speaking of dynamics, let's talk about mastery. Now, Greene, he has this kind of unconventional take on the whole find your passion thing.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that.
Right. He actually thinks it's kind of misleading.
Oh.
Yeah. Because true mastery, he says, often involves a lot of, like, tedium and boredom. Yeah. And he even tells this story about having dinner with Stevie Wonder and, just being struck by the thousands of hours of practice that went into his musical genius. So it's not just this, like, fleeting passion.
It's dedication, it's resilience.
Exactly. It's about a real commitment to the craft.
It is, and pushing through those challenges.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, let's say you're just starting out, right? How do you find that path to mastery? Well, Greene has some really insightful advice for young people.
Yeah.
And he says it's way more important to prioritize learning and responsibility over chasing a big paycheck right away.
That's good advice.
Yeah, right? And he talks about this concept he calls deep observation, which is all about absorbing the codes and conventions and skills of your chosen field, but without, like, being overly focused on impressing others.
It's more about, like, absorbing it all.
Exactly. Like really immersing yourself in the environment.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he's a huge advocate for learning by doing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Seeking out those hands-on experiences, because that's really how our brains are wired to learn best. So it's about, like, getting your hands dirty, making mistakes, learning from them.
Yeah. And just constantly iterating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, Greene's own journey to mastery, it actually took a pretty dramatic turn back in 2018.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
He had a stroke.
Oh, wow.
And it really had a profound impact on his physical abilities.
Yeah, I bet.
And his entire sense of self.
Yeah.
It forced him to really confront his mortality and reevaluate everything.
He actually shares a powerful realization he had after the stroke.
Oh, yeah?
He says, the ability you have now to run, to walk, to swim, to type, it can be taken away from you.
Wow.
Appreciate your life.
That's heavy.
It is. Makes you think about all the things we take for granted,
Yeah, absolutely. So how did he cope with the depression and frustration, the sense of loss?
Well, he turned to a few things, like writing became a lifeline for him. He actually says he feels the most peace and happiness when he's writing.
So it's almost like writing became his way of reclaiming some power.
Yeah, I think so.
And control over his life.
Yeah. He also relied on meditation, which he'd already been practicing for years. And he talks about this morning ritual of, like, greeting the sun, appreciating nature, and calming those intrusive negative thoughts.
I love that image of greeting the sun. It's so simple.
Yeah.
But so powerful.
It is. It's all about shifting your perspective and finding those sources of strength and inspiration outside of yourself.
Exactly. Greene also talks about the importance of remembering that others have it worse,
Right.
Instead of getting caught up in self-pity,
Yeah.
he consciously chooses to focus on gratitude for what he still has.
And, by comparing his situation
Yeah.
to those who are less fortunate, it allows him to reframe his own challenges and find that peace and acceptance.
It's a good reminder that even when things are tough, there's always something to be grateful for.
Absolutely.
Well, that brings us to the end of part 1 of our deep dive into Robert Greene's work.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. We've explored his perspective on power, seduction, mastery, and even his own personal journey through adversity.
So much good stuff.
But there's still more to unpack. Stay tuned for part 2, where we delve even deeper into Greene's strategies for overcoming adversity and how you can apply them to your own life.
Can't wait.
It's interesting. We were just talking about Greene's stroke.
Yeah.
And how it, completely changed his life, right?
Yeah.
It's like this experience almost deepened his understanding of power,
Oh, how so?
Well, especially that feeling of powerlessness that we talked about earlier.
Right.
It's like before the stroke, his understanding of power was mainly intellectual.
I see.
But after facing those physical limitations, having to depend on others, he gained this whole new level of empathy.
Makes sense.
For people who struggle with powerlessness every day.
Absolutely. It's one thing to think about these concepts, but
Right.
to actually experience them.
Yeah.
It changes everything.
Totally.
Yeah.
He even talks about now having this visceral understanding of what it's like to be physically limited, to rely on others for basic things.
Wow.
And to experience that frustration of not being able to do the things you once took for granted.
Yeah, it's a whole different perspective.
It is. And it brings us back to mastery,
Okay.
Greene emphasizes that achieving mastery in any field requires this deep commitment, resilience, and the willingness to push through challenges and setbacks.
Yeah.
And his own journey through recovery is such a powerful example of that.
Absolutely. I mean, he had to learn new ways of doing things, adapt to his limitations, find the mental strength to keep going even when progress was slow and frustrating.
Right. It's almost like he had to remaster his own life.
Exactly. And I think that's a really empowering way to think about it.
Yeah.
Mastery, it's not like a destination,
It's an ongoing process of learning, adapting, overcoming obstacles.
For sure. So let's talk about those obstacles.
Okay.
Greene had to deal with some pretty heavy stuff after his stroke, right?
Yeah.
Depression, frustration, that sense of loss for the life he once knew.
Totally.
So how did he manage to pull himself out of that dark place?
Well, he found solace in a few different strategies.
Okay.
Writing, for one, became a lifeline for him. He says that he feels the most peace and happiness when he's writing.
So it's almost like writing became his way of reclaiming some of that power and control over his life.
I think so.
Yeah.
He also relied on meditation, which he'd been practicing for years. And he talks about this morning ritual he has of greeting the sun, appreciating nature, and calming those intrusive negative thoughts.
Oh, I love that image,
It's beautiful.
Greeting the sun. It's so simple, but so powerful.
It is. It's all about shifting your perspective.
Finding sources of strength and inspiration outside of yourself.
Totally. Greene also talks about the importance of remembering that others have it worse.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
Right. Instead of getting stuck in that self-pity, he chooses to focus on gratitude for what he still has.
And, by comparing his situation
Yeah.
to those who are less fortunate, he's able to reframe his challenges and find a sense of peace and acceptance.
It's a good reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always something to be grateful for.
Absolutely. Always.
So we've talked about how Greene coped with his own adversity.
Yeah.
But how can we apply his strategies to our own lives?
That's a great question.
Right. I mean, we all face setbacks, disappointments, challenges that can make us feel powerless.
We do. Yeah.
So what are some key takeaways, for our listeners who might be going through a tough time right now?
I think the most important thing is to acknowledge those feelings of powerlessness.
Okay.
Don't try to bury them. Pretend they're not there,
Right.
Let yourself feel the frustration, the sadness, the anger, whatever it is.
It's like you have to acknowledge the shadow before you can integrate it.
Exactly. Once you've done that, you can start exploring those healthy coping mechanisms, right?
Right.
And Greene's experience highlights the power of writing,
Yeah.
meditation, and finding new sources of pleasure and joy.
It doesn't have to be anything fancy, right?
No, not at all.
It could be something as simple as taking a walk in nature,
Totally.
listening to music, or just, spending time with people you love.
The key is to find activities that bring you that sense of peace, joy, and connection to something larger than yourself.
And Greene also emphasizes the importance of perspective.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in our own struggles.
It is.
And forget to look at the bigger picture.
He challenges us to, look beyond our immediate circumstances and think about people who might be facing even greater challenges than our own.
Yeah. And by doing that,
Right.
we can cultivate that sense of gratitude for what we do have and find the strength to keep going.
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder that we're not alone in our struggles.
Yeah.
And even when things are tough, there's always hope.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground so far in this deep dive, haven't we?
We have.
Explored Greene's unique take on power, seduction, mastery, and even his personal journey of resilience in the face of adversity.
It's been a fascinating exploration.
It has.
Of human nature and the strategies we can use to navigate life.
But we're not done yet.
There's more.
There's one more, really important insight from Greene.
Okay.
That I think might be the most empowering one of all.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
Stay tuned for part 3, where we reveal Greene's final, thought-provoking question and challenge you to take action in your own life.
Awesome, can't wait.
Okay, so welcome back to part 3 of our deep dive with Robert Greene.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has. And I feel like this last part kind of brings everything together.
Oh, yeah.
Remember how we were talking about confidence and how true confidence, it can't be faked, right?
Yeah, it has to come from those real skills and accomplishments.
Exactly. So Greene leaves us with this really powerful question, and I want to share it with our listeners because I think it's something we could all benefit from.
Okay, I like where this is going.
So he says, if true confidence comes from skills and accomplishments, what one step can you take today to build your confidence in an area that matters to you?
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. It's such a simple question,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so profound.
It is. And it's a good challenge, It's easy to get caught up in our routines and forget about actively building confidence.
Totally. And he's not talking about some huge life-altering step.
Right.
It could be something small, manageable.
Like what?
I don't know, signing up for that online course you've been thinking about.
Oh, yeah.
Or reaching out to a mentor in your field.
Mm-hmm.
Or even just committing to practicing a skill for 15 minutes today.
You know what? I've been meaning to get back into playing guitar.
Oh, nice. There you go. See?
Maybe that's my one step today.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to get overwhelmed by this idea of mastery.
Oh, yeah. It feels so big.
Right.
Yeah.
But it really is about those small, consistent actions,
It is, and it goes back to what Greene was saying about deep observation and learning by doing.
Oh, totally.
Those principles apply here, too.
Yeah.
It's about taking action even if it feels uncomfortable at first.
Right.
And trusting that, the more you practice, the more you engage with that craft, the more confident you'll become.
And then, as you build those skills and start achieving those goals, that confidence, it just naturally shines through.
Yeah. It's not about trying to appear confident anymore. It's about embodying it.
Exactly. All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive with Robert Greene, we want to encourage you, the listener, to keep exploring his work, Apply his insights to your own life.
Yeah, he has so much to offer.
He does. And remember to think about power as self-control,
Mm-hmm.
seduction as the art of warm connection,
Right.
and mastery as a lifelong journey.
Absolutely. And above all, remember that even when facing adversity, there's always that path towards growth, resilience, and a deeper understanding of, yourself and the world.
Keep learning, keep questioning.
Striving for that mastery.
Yes. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.